So we are letting people know about this program because not very many people do. And one of the things that my colleague Bob Wall, who's the Vice President of Smart Power, and I really like to start off these sessions with is a little video. It's a 5-minute video, and it was produced by some friends of ours at another nonprofit organization called People's Action for Clean Energy. They, like we, help educate people about the options for energy efficiency and renewables. So shall we run the little video?
Well, question, do we want to let our guest of honor have a few words before we start our short video?
Sorry, hi everybody. Just a couple minutes.
Welcome. Hi, Tara.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hello.
How's it going?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Hi.
Good to see you.
You too.
Yes,
Likewise.
thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Are you expecting more? Do we happen to know? Is Henry here? Where's Henry? Hi.
Whenever people come.
Okay.
And remember, we're videotaping, so.
Great.
Which way is the camera? Oh, okay.
Hello to the viewers at home, if anybody's joining us.
We
Thank
do
you
have
everyone
some.
Great,
Yes.
fantastic then. So nice to see everybody. It's a beautiful evening, so thank you for coming out. And I see a couple former military members, so thank you for your service.
No, it's not me.
No?
My daughter.
All right, airborne. Airborne all the way. And sir, for your service, thank you. Go Army, beat Navy. Anyway, we're here for a different purpose tonight. So first of all and foremost, thank you to the committee, the Energy Committee, for reinvigorating this and getting this campaign off and going. I think it's very important to continue our education in all facets of life, right? So as new things emerge and there's things that we can do collectively to potentially make the life we live better, then it's important that we all kind of educate ourselves and come together to figure out what options are to move into the future and create a better world for future generations. So I'm happy to be here and be a part of this and happy to support it as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. So you're here just in time. I think if you can stay for 5 minutes,
Absolutely.
at least.
I even brought my husband to look.
Oh, good. Hello there. So we have a 5-minute video that was prepared by People's Action for Clean Energy, and this kind of gives a little overview of this program. The details will be covered very aptly by Bob Wall. So
Gruesomely.
So shall we show the video now?
We shall.
If you lived in Connecticut in 2011, you probably remember the October ice storm that knocked out power across the state for multiple days. There's nothing like being in the dark without heat or hot showers to get you thinking about a backup system. Well, you're in luck. Incentives from the federal government and state are making battery storage systems more financially attractive. Unlike gasoline-powered generators, a home battery system requires no setup when you lose power, has no risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, is quieter, and does not emit greenhouse gases. Battery storage systems can also strengthen the grid by increasing cost-effectiveness, resiliency, and equity. When utility customers install battery systems, all Connecticut residents benefit.
Gosh, I'd love to know how that works.
Home battery systems will store energy from the grid and discharge it when energy flow from the grid weakens or stops, allowing you to continue to power some of your most critical appliances. The battery storage systems on the market today have capacities of between 10 and 39 kilowatt hours and can provide power to essential home systems for many hours or even days depending on use. When paired with solar, battery systems become even more effective. They can store the extra energy produced by your array when the power is out, and your solar array can continue to charge your battery backup, providing power throughout a blackout. The Solar Plus battery installation keeps your power on by islanding or disconnecting itself from the grid when an outage is detected.
It does seem like a great idea, but I'm not sure that I can afford it.
Home batteries do cost thousands of dollars, but the good news is that federal and state incentives are available right now. If your battery has a capacity of at least 3 kilowatt hours and is installed in a home that you use as a residence, whether you are an owner or a renter, you can claim a 30% tax credit in the year in which it is installed. This residential clean energy property credit, Section 25D on your taxes, is good until the end of 2032, and then it will be phased out. There is no limit to the credit, but the credits are non-refundable and so can only be used to decrease or eliminate tax liability, though unused portions of the credit may be carried forward in future years.
Okay, but you'd mentioned something about a state program.
If you want to take advantage of the state of Connecticut rebates, you need to be an Eversource or United Illuminating customer and be willing to share your storage system with the grid. The program, called Energy Storage Solutions, provides an upfront incentive and a performance incentive. If you purchase and install qualifying systems, you will be eligible for a rebate of $200 per kilowatt hour of battery capacity, up to 50% of the cost, with a maximum incentive per project of $7,500. Higher incentives are available for customers who meet low income limits, with the upfront incentive being $400 per kilowatt hour. For those who live in underserved communities, the upfront incentive is $300 per kilowatt hour. The performance incentive is received after each performance incentive season for the first 10 years, and it is based on the average power your system provides to the grid during critical times. Imagine that the electric company pays you.
So, how do I share my system with a utility?
To participate in the program, you must allow your system to discharge evenly between 3 and 8 p.m. daily during summer and winter events. The utility will send your device a signal the day before and then discharge up to 80% of your battery over a period of 5 hours per day. No matter the time of year, they won't draw power from your battery 2 days before a predicted extreme weather event, so you'll be charged up and ready to go if the power goes out. Alternatively, Eversource customers may participate in the Connected Solutions program. You will not receive an upfront rebate and will make less in rewards, but the utility will draw power from your battery less often. To learn more, visit pacecleanenergy.org.
So that gives a little overview of how this program works, and there's a link to the PowerSmart Brookfield website, so that you can see that again. And one little note we should say, at the end of this video, there was a few seconds where they described something called the Connected Solutions Program. So that's not something that the Green Bank is involved with right now, and it actually is being sunsetted at the end of next year. So it's a little simpler. You know, you have energy storage solutions. You don't have to worry about this other program unless you have, you know, certain expectations, and we can tell you about those. But Energy Storage Solutions is the name of the program that will be going on for at least 10 years, and we're delighted to be able to tell you more about it. So, Bob, would you like to take it from here, please?
I would, thank you.
Turn the lights out.
Or at least maybe a few of them.
Let's see what this does. Is that okay? Okay.
So Patrice mentioned a little bit about Smart Power, but we are the nation's leading nonprofit marketing organization devoted to promoting both renewable energy and energy efficiency. And we're also moving on to other technologies such as battery storage and electric vehicles. We were founded here in Connecticut in 2002, and typically we manage high-impact community campaigns like PowerSmart. You might recall we managed the Clean Energy Communities Program and Solarize Connecticut on behalf of the Connecticut Green Bank. And PowerSmart, just very briefly, is a 20-week campaign to promote both solar and battery storage. The program is funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, and our team is led by Yale and New York University, who will be performing a study to understand the co-adoption of solar and related technologies. Here in Connecticut, we'll be focused on battery storage, and in other states, they'll be looking at some other advanced technologies. But Brookfield is one of only 28 towns that will be selected for these campaigns.
Excuse me, Bob, with the blower on, would you mind using the microphone?
It's on. I don't know.
It's on, maybe you pull it a little closer.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Thanks. I noticed the.
Sometimes it gets hard to hear, so if you could try to speak louder into the mic in case the.
Okay. Thank you. And just briefly, our target audience for this campaign is exclusively residential, but I wanted to mention that all the programs we'll be talking about have counterparts for commercial entities, including municipalities and nonprofits, but our program is focused on residents. And it's both existing solar owners who are curious about battery storage and people who don't have solar who might want to add solar plus storage or even just a storage system. So just a little recap on the state of solar in Connecticut. Originally the program was run by the Connecticut Green Bank, and then they hit their legislative mandates back in 2021, so they were directed to sunset that program. Nearly 50,000 homes had already gone solar for more than 378 megawatts of installed capacity across the state. And then things were shifted over to the utilities. And so starting on January 1, 2022, a new program was launched called Residential Renewable Energy Solutions, that's administered by both Eversource and UI. It's not available in those few towns that have municipal utilities. But basically, this new program replaces the old RCIP program run by the Green Bank, and they also have new net metering rules that were approved by the state regulatory authority. So we'll be talking about that in connection with solar. The first part of the presentation we'll talk about solar, and then we'll move into the batteries. So I apologize for those people who already have solar, and this will be old news. But surely you recognize that there are many benefits of going solar. Most importantly for people, it can lower your utility bill, especially over the lifetime of the system. And it also protects you against rising prices. And everybody was in sticker shock early this year when the utilities skyrocketed utility prices. Fortunately, they came down a bit in July, but historically, you can count on them to go ever upward. Studies have also shown that adding solar to your house can add value to the resale of your home. So it's a great return on investment. And lastly, it can help the environment in a number of ways. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, other pollutants such as SOx and NOx, and also reduce water consumption that's associated with conventional power production. A few elements are important to understand if your home is right for solar. First is the orientation of your house. If your house has a roof that is facing either south, east, or west, you could be an excellent candidate for solar. The only one that doesn't work well is if it's north-facing roof. You also want to be relatively free of shade, either from trees or surrounding buildings or even chimneys or other appurtenances on your rooftop, because they can cast shadows that impact the sunlight hitting the panels. You also want to have a roof that is relatively young, probably less than 10 years, and is in good shape. So, if it's older than that, you might want to consider replacing the shingles before you add solar. And it can be placed on almost any roof material. However, things like slate and wood can be more challenging and more costly for the installers. And unfortunately, even though I've been promoting solar for nearly 20 years, my house roof is facing north, and I have a ton of tall oak trees. So, and Patrice is in the same boat, so what's the irony of that here? So just to give you a sense of the average cost of solar, I looked up two different sources. So this is what they claim is the current average cost of solar. It's between $2.80 and $3.23 a watt. And typically systems are sold in kilowatts. So you would multiply this by 1,000 to convert watts to kilowatts, and then whatever the size of your system, which is dependent upon your available roof space, or in some cases your yard space, if that's better for you, and also your average electricity consumption. So the contractors will look at that and factor into what's an appropriate size for you. So overall, I can't even read the fine print here, but maybe up there. Like a 7 kilowatt system is roughly about 13,000, I think. My eyesight is bad in there, but if you, we'll give a copy of this to Henry and the Energy Advisory Committee, and you can read it more clearly. But this is also before taxes, so there's a 30% federal tax credit available for practically another 10 years, which greatly reduces the price, and there's also net metering credits, which we'll talk about in a moment. That moment has come. So when they changed the net metering plan in Connecticut, they provided two different options. The first is called buy all, and under this option you sell all the power that you generate on your rooftop to the utility, and then you purchase all the power from the grid. But one thing we learned is that if you're interested in a battery storage system, you cannot choose option one. But again, talk to your contractor, your installer about this. We've been informed that the vast majority, I think it's more than 95% of the people, have chosen option two, which is called netting. And this is fairly similar to the original net metering plan. The biggest difference is that under the old plan, you got to offset kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour, and now they convert it to a dollar amount, which is credited to your bill. And if your system generates more than you use in a given month, like in the summertime, that'll roll over, just like a cell phone has rollover minutes. And the incentive rate is based on what you currently pay, plus there is an amount for the renewable energy certificate that you are voluntarily relinquishing to the utility. There are adders, as was mentioned in the video, for low-income households. So how do you go about finding an installer? As with any home improvement project, we recommend getting multiple quotes and references from the contractors you are in touch with. There is a list of eligible contractors for the energy storage solutions, which is the battery program, and you don't have to use one of those contractors unless you plan to enroll in energy storage solutions, in which case you do have to use them. You can also ask a friend or a neighbor who has solar, who did they use? You can go online, and there are a lot of outlets that provide reviews similar to Yelp reviews, and they can will provide customer experiences with different installers and their reviews. There's also an online portal run by a company called Energy Sage, where you can just input some basic information and request quotes, and you'll get a number of 3 to 5 different quotes, and you can compare them apples to apples. If you have any questions as you go through this process, you can talk to us, you can talk to somebody at Eversource, just to get some neutral feedback. We also have a technical consultant that responds to people who sign up for more information. So that it concludes our solar portion of the presentation. Now I'm going to move into batteries, but if anyone has any questions about solar before we move on, I'm happy to entertain. And you can save your questions for the end also, if things come to you later on. All right, so why don't we move on to batteries? And this sounds like it's something really new and exciting, but if you think about it, batteries are already ubiquitous in our lives. You know, from our laptops to our cell phones to our toothbrushes, some of our cars, lawn equipment, flashlights, etc. We already use batteries, many of which are, you know, rechargeable batteries, similar to the technology that can power your house. So it's not something new and futuristic. It's been around for a while, and it's already proven to work in houses. Why do people consider battery storage? Well, it's a backup power source. You know, when I moved to Connecticut, it was about 20 years ago. It was fairly rare to have a blackout, but somewhere along the line they seem to happen more frequently and last longer than they used to. So this is a great way to provide backup power when the grid goes down. Also, unlike conventional generators, you can use clean energy, and even outside of an emergency, when the grid is out, you can use clean energy to power your house at night when the sun is no longer shining. You may have critical medical devices, so a lot of people consider this a great way of ensuring that those will continue to operate if there's a problem with the grid system. And as we mentioned, by enrolling in energy storage solutions, you can earn money getting paid by Eversource for a change. And one of the other great benefits, environmental benefits, is by buying power from these stored battery systems, typically powered by solar, the utilities don't have to go out and purchase power during the peak days of summer or even the peak days of winter. And when they do that, they typically get it from oil or gas plants, which are not only extremely expensive to turn on, but they're also highly polluting. So, you know, there's an altruistic motive here of really helping everybody by keeping the costs down and keeping the pollution lower on those peak days. And, you know, I think we've been experiencing more and more of those lately. You know, fortunately, not as bad as some other parts of the country, but you know, somebody turned up the thermostat, I think, and forgot to tell us.
That's the reason why we had such high rates over the winter.
What's that?
That's the reason why we had such high rates.
Yeah, well, we have gas constriction, and so that creates a problem. So there are a couple different options. The simplest one is to just buy a battery system outright. As the preview mentioned, these are not inexpensive technology pieces. They can run, you know, in the many thousands of dollars, but you would be entitled to get the federal. It depends, but I would say the typical starter level would be around 15 to 20,000 before incentives, and then if you got like 2 batteries, there's some break, you know, economy of scale. It might only be in the 30s, but say 30 to 35 for that, and that, you know, we'll talk about that, but it depends how much you want to be able to power in the event of a blackout. Do you have a question?
Can you explain what the 30% federal tax credit is?
Yeah.
Is it a direct income tax credit, or is it 30% of the cost of the unit?
No, let's say the system costs 20,000. Keep the math simple. You would be entitled to a $6,000 credit. So if you owed $6,000 or more dollars in taxes for federal taxes, you would reduce it by the 6,000.
It's a one-time thing?
It's one time, but if you have less than 6,000 in this example, you would carry it over and take it in the second year until it's exhausted.
Basically, it's a tax credit against 30% of the cost of the system.
Right, and it's important to note as, you know, I'll give some examples, but if you do get an upfront incentive, you have to reduce the cost by the amount of the incentive, so it's not the base price. It's the net price. But some of the other advantages of just buying it outright, you can choose any contractor as long as they're licensed, and you can choose any make of battery. The Energy Storage Solutions Program has a list of approved technologies that, you know, they have that in place because the batteries need to be able to communicate with the grid, and so there are some technology requirements there. And you can also use the power however and whenever you want. You don't have to worry about having it being drawn by the utility under the, you know, in the periods of the program. So now we'll move into the program, which is the Energy Storage Solutions. This is administered jointly by the Connecticut Green Bank, Eversource, and UI. And what's great about this is that there are 3 different types of incentives available, and Connecticut is really out in front of most states who don't have incentives for batteries. The first is upfront, as the video mentioned. You can typically get up to $7,500, and we understand that PURA, the regulatory authority, is in the middle of a docket proceeding for the program review for year 2, and things could change, so stay tuned. We'll keep everybody posted if for instance, they decide to increase the upfront incentive. This was based on a time when the Green Bank and its partners were assuming that batteries would cost around $15,000, but, you know, they're experiencing that there's been some upward pricing. So it really, you know, it's not as attractive as it was originally perceived.
Now, is the upfront up to 75,000 or 7,500? Is that state, or are we still talking federal?
That's state. This is part of the state's Energy Storage Solutions Program. So basically, this is just like in the old days of the solar program, they would just knock this off the price of solar. So, you know, if you were, I'll give an example, it'll probably be a little bit clearer, but you would just take that off the price, and then we go to incentive 2, which is the tax credit. This is federal, and you would take 30% off that net price, okay? And then finally, there's a rolling performance incentive, which is in return for you selling some of the stored power to the grid during peak summer months and also peak winter months.
Could you explain a bit on kind of the procurement process with Eversource, how you're getting your actual battery capacity sold to them?
Yeah, I think it'll be covered in some of the upcoming slides, and I admit it's a little confusing, but I'll do my best to explain it. So I just wanted to reiterate, to enroll in Energy Storage Solutions, you are required to use an approved contractor. There are currently 33 approved contractors for residential projects, and also use approved technologies. There are at least 5 different manufacturers, and that list is evolving. So other contractors and other battery manufacturers could be added, and some might disappear in the future.
Are these incentives, are all 3 of them available, or you have to pick one of the 3?
No, all 3 are available. And the last one, the earning money for selling it to Eversource, you would be getting payments over 10 years. They pay it out after each season, so there's a summer season and a winter season. And after year 5, it's already scheduled to drop down a little bit, but you'd be guaranteed getting payments over 10 years. So combined, you know, this doesn't cover the entire cost of the battery, but it defrays it significantly, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. Yes, ma'am?
Can you give an example of how much the incentive might be?
Yes, I have a couple of slides for both a small and a medium-sized system, which are probably the only 2 that folks would be considering.
Does Illuminating also use the
Yes, I just used Eversource because of we're here, but UI has the same program and the same incentives.
How long does it take to have enough power to store in order to sell to earn the money?
Well, the power is being put into the battery on a daily basis. So if you're in one of the peak periods, which is the summer months, June through September, and I think the next slide is going to explain that a little bit. They will be drawing for that period of 5 hours, but just to make it more confusing, they have that's called the passive dispatch, and they also have an active dispatch. So why don't I just go to that? So normally, you would have 5 hours, then they would draw from your battery. But it's only in the summer months. So in the other months of the year, you get to use it as you deem fit. But in the summer months, they're going to be drawing off a little, and they have some parameters that they have to follow. So they will not draw power from you on a holiday. They will not draw power if there's a major storm predicted. They will cancel this out. And then they have something, and that's called the passive dispatch. It just happens kind of routinely. But on days that are where the forecast is going to be like 95 and humid, and they know everyone's going to be running air conditioners, that's when they would call for an active dispatch. And ironically, at the time they need it most, they actually give the customer the option whether or not they want to sell for the active dispatch. They think, the thinking is that on days like that, it could be there could be a risk of an outage, so they don't want you to be prone, to be without stored power if you need it for any reason. So basically, this is how the dispatches operate. And then the rest of the year once you get past September, then they wouldn't be drawing power and you'd be using it all on your own. But then for a few days in the winter, they can also go back to this system. So I know that's simple as pie, right? And I'm sure that a contractor can, and especially the program administrators, Eversource and Greenbank, it's really Eversource handles this part of the incentives. The Greenbank handles the upfront part, but they can explain it more clearly if you have questions. But
Do they draw your batteries all the way down, or do they leave you?
no, I think that they have a limit as to what they can draw down. I don't think they can go more than 80%.
Do you have an idea about how long it takes to charge a battery?
No, but to the extent that these passive dispatches occur routinely, the battery is able to charge day by day. So I think it's probably less time than it takes to charge your electric vehicle from a level 1 charger.
Are the batteries only recharged by the solar, or does the grid continue to recharge them when they're not drawing?
You could charge it without solar, and I don't know if you have solar, if you're drawing from both your system and the from the grid. But it makes sense that it could be from both because it's possible to buy a system without even having solar. But the advantage of having solar is if the power does go out, your battery will be getting recharged as long as the sun is shining. So as I mentioned, there are some requirements that you have to use eligible equipment. There are currently 5 different battery manufacturers that they allowed. If you're reading along with this, you might note that Tesla Powerwall is not mentioned on this list. Thus far, they have balked at enrolling, but as I said, the PURA, the regulatory agency, is reviewing the program. They've already ordered the old Connected Solutions program to be sunset as of 12/1, meaning that no more customers can enroll in that program, and they're only guaranteed payments for next year, and after that it's up in the air. Tesla is in that program, so my sense, and a lot of people in the know seem to think that there will be a way for customers in not only in that program, but customers who want to get Tesla Powerwalls or something else that's not on this list on this slide will be able to participate. They may not, however, qualify for the upfront incentive, just only the performance incentive as they are currently. So that's another matter that you'll have to follow along with, and we'll keep everybody posted as soon as a decision is issued by PURA. As I said, there are 33 approved contractors. This is a rolling list, so and this is for residential system. There are others who are approved to do commercial systems. You can go on to the Green Bank site to see their names. You could do a search if you wanted to consider somebody who is local. There's an app on there where you can put in like within 10 miles or 25 miles of my house and get a shorter list that's filtered out by that. And we are putting together we call it a consumer guide, but basically it's an attempt to provide you, the potential customers, with some information just so you have an understanding of, oh, this company has done 500 solar installations or 50 batteries, and you get a better sense of their experience and capabilities. So they've been a little slow to respond to our questions, and Eversource has also been a little slow, as has UI. But the Green Bank, bless their hearts, has provided us with all the data for everybody who participated in either their old solar program or the current Energy Storage Solutions battery program. And we will post that on the website and provide it to the town just so you can have a little more information on hand.
So the contractors are procuring their own materials, so the solar panels and batteries vary by contractor?
Yes, it's not like going to a Home Depot and you would see all the brands on the shelves. Different installers might prefer to have different panels, and they usually have more than one. But with batteries, they might just have one or maybe a few, but not all 5 of the ones that are approved. A lot of them have been dealing Tesla Powerwalls because that was one of the first and best known products out there. So they might have the Tesla Powerwall as well as Enphase or Generac, which are part of the current program. So it makes it a little funky, I think, you can't just go to a contractor and expect that they will have all the products on the list. They'll have some of them, and the solar, it's not an issue, but for the battery storage, again, because of the need to communicate with the grid, it has to meet certain technological specifications.
And are all of these products manufactured offshore?
I think it's a mix. I know and it's a bit confusing too, because a lot of these products might have components that are partially made in the U.S. and partially made offshore. But SunPower, for example, is a U.S. company, and they're one of the approved installers. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think the other companies are U.S. mainly, but I'm not sure where they get their components from. So this is a slide obviously titled "The Average Cost of Storage in Connecticut," and this was based on data provided through the Energy Sage site, and it's $14,038 per kilowatt hour. And batteries are very confusing because they are sold both in kilowatt as well as kilowatt hours. So there's like a power element and a capacity element. So it gets a little confusing, but this is the average price per kilowatt hour. And these numbers I can read a little more clearly. The system costs range from like $15,000 to $37,000 based on this average. And this is all pre-incentives, as I mentioned. I'm going to be talking about a couple of special incentives The first is the grid edge, and the second is low income. And for low income, it's just a matter of matching up to see how your household income compares to kind of the state average. And if you qualify, you can receive higher benefits. But let's talk about grid edge, because I took a little snapshot of the state map. This is Eversource's map, and although you probably can't see all the borders, Brookfield is pretty much in the center of this map. So the red lines and blue lines are illustrating what's considered to be grid edge, and as the text defines it, it's the top 10% of circuits in Connecticut that had the most storm outages over the past decade, as well as the top 10% of circuits that had the longest storm outages over that period. You can go to this link and put your address to see if your house is on one of those blue or red lines, but it looks to me that much of Brookfield would qualify for grid edge, and the advantage to that, I mean, if you want to look at the bright side of being prone to power outages, is that you're entitled to a 50% kicker on the incentive. So instead of $200 per kilowatt, you would get $300 per kilowatt. So this is something that's really captivating people in our other towns, because I think all of our towns have been particularly prone to not only frequent blackouts, but long in duration blackouts. So again, the simplest way to figure out if you're eligible is to go to this link and put in your address, and you can find out. And obviously, there'll be a lot of questions for your contractor, and that sort of leads into our next slide. People are curious, what size battery do I need? And the answer is it depends. For most people, they want to focus on certain essential items, knowing that some appliances have huge electrical demands, and it would be very expensive to keep everything running, your air conditioner, your clothes dryer, and some of those real energy hogs. So the real basic ones for many people is make sure the lights are running, the refrigerator so your food doesn't spoil, and outlets to charge your devices, like power your cell phone or run a fan, things like that. But there may be other things that are important to you. Could be like medical devices or other things that you consider important. So you can talk to your contractor, and they can do the calculations to figure out what size battery you need. You also want to consider how long do you want the backup power to run. So in the event that day 2 of the blackout is not a sunny day, that's something to consider if you want to ensure that you have enough power stored in your battery to keep it running. That could be a consideration. So there is also a link at the Green Bank where you can kind of plug in the information you're getting from your contractors to try to figure out your specific incentive levels. And you have to make some estimates, particularly deciding like how much of the power you want to agree to sell. So I think in the cost examples that are coming up next, they assume that you would be selling 90% of the power, but in your situation you might sell less, so that would mean your performance incentive would be slightly lower. But this is a tool that can help you to kind of get a better understanding of your actual incentive amounts. So here we are with the first cost estimate, and I will confess that I borrowed liberally from the Connecticut Green Bank's example, and this was assuming it was a 6 kilowatt and a 13 kilowatt hour system that they estimated to cost $21,000 base. So the upfront incentive, which is based on typical for standard rate, it would be 200 times the 13 kilowatt hour, amounting to 2,600. But if you happen to be on a grid edge property, then it would be 300 times the 13 kilowatt hours. After reducing that amount from the base cost, then you apply your 30% federal tax credit. And then finally, this is an estimate over the 10 years of the performance-based incentive. And in this calculation, you would be paying between 5,700 roughly to 6,600. And these are some of the assumptions in the fine print below. But I want to show you the medium-sized system. And even though the original cost is significantly higher, 35,000, you'll see everything follows the same principles of the upfront incentive, the tax credit, and the performance incentive. But you'll see the net cost is not significantly more than the small system. So it's maybe 1,000 or two more. So this is also part of the conversation with the contractor determining what size is right for you, but recognizing that, by doubling the system size, you're not doubling your out-of-pocket cost. It increases it fairly nominally. And just as with this finding a solar contractor, the battery storage contractor is similar. If you want to participate in energy storage solutions, you have to use one of the contractors on that list. But it's the same principles. We always encourage you to get multiple quotes. You can talk to your solar installer if you happen to have solar already, or ask a friend who has solar or battery storage about who they recommend. And you can also get online quotes from Energy Sage. Again, you want to be careful that both the contractor and the equipment are eligible for the program. And we wanted to do kind of a shout out to the website we've developed for PowerSmart Brookfield. You can go on there and enter some information, and we will respond asking you questions whether you're interested in solar or storage or both, and try to put you on the path to point you in right directions and what your options are. We'll also have a calendar of events such as this. Our next event, we hope to have either Eversource or the Green Bank doing a virtual presentation, probably next month sometime. And for people who have these technologies, we'd love to get testimonials. So if you know anyone who has solar or batteries, we'd love to get a testimonial that we could put on the website. Seeing is believing. If your friends or neighbors have it, it can be very influential. We'll also put media. I think the Danbury paper has been great covering this program so far, and also resources to give you some neutral information, program-specific links, and so forth is all on that website. So that is really the official end of the presentation, but we do have some information on frequently asked questions, both for the solar program, and there's an address at Eversource that you can write to about the solar program. And similarly, the Green Bank has an outstanding FAQ page linked here, and you can email them to ask specific questions to the extent they're not covered, or you have a unique situation. And if you have any questions about the program itself, here's information for myself and Patrice, and we're happy to help you as best we can. And if we can't, we'll turn you over to the people more expert than we are. We're not engineers by training. We just want to save the world. So with that, I'll just open it up to any further questions about batteries. And
Where will this presentation be available?
we could,
Email it to you if you give us your email address.
yeah, and we'll provide it with Henry and the team, so it'll be available, possibly posted on that website. But there's already some resources there with program links, but I know it's a barrage of links and acronyms, so we've tried to do our best to explain it. We're still learning as we go. Yes, sir?
Using the calculus that you provided there, after 10 years, driven down to about 6K, so it's probably 15 years or so before the system's paid for itself, based on kind of what you were showing there. Is that
Well,
more or less accurate?
I don't think that they have determined whether the incentives will extend beyond 10 years, so that might be the extent, but things could change. So it's different from solar, which has a really reasonable return on investment. You know, it could be like 7 to 9 years for most people. This you wind up, for batteries, you wind up paying some out of pocket, but you're getting the benefit of you know, being able to use clean energy at night and also have a backup generator.
And then the second question I had is the prices or the price points that you showed. Is that just for the battery? Does that also include accessories? Is there a requirement for kind of any kind of gateway Wi-Fi or anything to go?
No, but typically there will be a second panel that's mounted next to your basic electric panel, and this is for your critical load items. So whatever you decide that you want to have running, there'll be a separate panel there. There's also a Connecticut state fire requirement that you have to have it sort of enclosed with fireproof protection. Not that we're aware of any fires or anything, but they've introduced that as an extra measure of protection. Everything has to comply with fire codes.
Is that rolled up into those costs, or those are additional costs that the homeowner will
I believe it's rolled up into it. Yes?
Can I make a comment?
You may.
Hi everyone, my name is Liam Mania. I'm a senior at UConn and the secretary on the Energy Advisory Board. I know we kind of touched on it about the value of solar during the presentation, but when you're making your evaluation, the cost-benefit evaluations of whether you should be putting a solar and battery system in your house, you have to look at what's the closest substitute and make a bet on that. The closest substitute is going to be the cheapest rate that you can get on the Connecticut rate board. And if back in November when Eversource and UI announced that they were going to have really high supply rates, did any of you switch to a third-party supplier? So that's going to be your closest substitute. And if that's much cheaper than the cost of your solar and battery system over the life of the system, then maybe this program isn't going to be the best for you. But if it is, and if you want to have that kind of rate stability, and you have to essentially make a bet on whether you think electric rates are going to go up over time or they won't. We saw the main problem over the past few years has been there's been too much demand on the grid at certain times, particularly in the winter, when there's not enough capacity in the natural gas pipelines. And there's actually two of them that runs through Brookfield, the Algonquin and the Iroquois. And if either one of those or if both of those were to have a major fall on them at a certain critical peak period of demand, it could cause grid reliability issues from Greenwich to New Brunswick, Canada. So you have to make a bet on whether you think electric rates are going to go up over time or they won't. And when we're talking about grid resilience, PURA and the state government has been putting a lot of pressure on both Eversource and UI for their outage response times, particularly in response to what happened in August 2020. They're putting higher restrictions, or they're raising the percentage of renewable electricity that they're supposed to be procuring for each 6-month period. And they're putting more pressure on them to trim trees around the power lines, which is pretty much the main reason why you have power outages at the distribution level. So when you're making your critical assessment, you have to just think, if you want to kind of lock in your price now for the future, that's the benefit of this kind of program. Or if you think that rates are going to go up significantly over time, you have to make that bet.
Thank you, Liam.
That's interesting, and thank you for sharing that. However, with a family like mine, for example, which Brookfield consists of, families with small children, maybe 5, 6, 7 residents in a household, right out of the gate, you're looking at a $30,000 investment. With people are wanting to feed their families, the price of goods, and how would somebody afford to spend $30,000 when we're guessing on the future?
Well, I would just add to Liam's comments that I think You're not required to do solar and storage. You know, we're providing information about battery storage systems, but if you really want a really safe economic bet, solar is definitely going to save you money in the long run. Obviously, with the price of the battery storage systems, especially since it's relatively high now, you know, that might not be the same economic deal that solar would provide. But I think solar has been proven to be a fairly safe bet. You know, I know people that have had payback in less than 5 years, but as I said, it's more typical to, 7 to 9 or so, given the historic trends of power rates. So if you want to just break it down to solar, not necessarily solar plus storage, you know, even a family of, with 5 kids can, because you can get solar for no money down, and you can lease it or get a loan either for no money down. And historically, it's a better payback if you purchase a system, but for many people, that's not really possible. So, solar can be a pretty strong guarantee, better than most investments on Wall Street.
So, I mean, right now, the way this is being pitched is you go with these 6 different companies and you're going to get all these incentives, yada, yada. But that's kind of assuming that the technology is not going to change over the course of time. And 3 years down the road, if this is a lucrative business, there's going to be other folks coming in saying, well, I can make that way better than Generac for a third of the price, give you more storage capacity. Yeah, you're not going to get the incentive, but you're going to pay upfront costs. So there's risk there too. There's risk that you're betting on a technology today that 3 years from now, it's like the computer that you had in 1980 or 5 doesn't look like the computer that we have in 2000. The capacity changes.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, but the reality is that those advances are not as dramatic as we think. Probably in 15, 20 years, there will definitely be more efficient solar panels, and as more people adopt solar, the prices come down. Similar with batteries, the price will eventually come down. So you do have to weigh those considerations. But if you're concerned that tomorrow there's going to come out with something that's 50% better, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, not tomorrow, but
No, even, maybe in 15, 20 years, I would say you're absolutely right, but I don't think things will be, it's not as dramatic as the computer world where you bought something last year and now next year you have to change it.
Military research and development and what they're doing with batteries now, I think it's probably going to be a lot faster than 15 or 20 years when you see major moves.
Yeah, and we've had some really smart people coming to our workshops around the state, and one of them observed that it would probably make more sense to wait until they allow electric vehicles to be able to charge your home, because it's much more economical to get an electric vehicle and with much more capacity that can power your house than it is for a standalone battery storage. But we don't have that yet, and we don't know when we will. Yes, sir.
What's the lifespan of your batteries?
I'm sorry, what? Lifespan?
Lifespan of batteries.
I believe they are warranted for 10 years, but I think they are expected to last between 10 and 20 years.
How long do the solar panels last?
I think they are typically, they're warranted for 20 years, but they're expected to last more than that. There's a slight annual degradation, so what it's producing in year 1 is going to be a little bit less each successive year, but it'll still be producing power in 20, probably 30 or more years. So it's still relatively young in its availability. So we don't have a lot of data on 50-year-old panels, but I believe they would still be producing. But as your husband suggested, 50 years, there's definitely going to be a better panel you could buy and put on your house. Right? There have been a number of studies that show that it does add value to the resale.
And it can't be taxed
It
by
can't
law.
be taxed?
It can't be taxed if you add value to your
The,
house.
the property
because
tax
of
is exempt.
solar panels, it can't be added to the, to your taxes.
So it's not added to the assessment?
Right.
Now, there's a
That's
property
by law.
tax exemption in Connecticut.
The power that you sell back, is that subject to income tax?
No,
So there's no, it's not in addition to your income for that, in that regard. And what you just said was the municipality can't tax you for the value of the system. Both of those things
the
are correct?
property tax is exempt, yeah.
Okay.
Is there being any work done on standalone solar panels, not on your roof, for people who have compromised areas? I think they're trying to go vertical now as well as horizontal.
Yeah, there's certainly some applications. I think when I was at the Green Bank, we did a vertical panel on a science building. It might have been part of a school, but you definitely see them around. And also, you know, we didn't focus on it too much, but there are ground-mounted systems. You might have seen some. I know I live in Fairfield, but in Easton, the elementary school has its entire school powered by solar that's in a field behind the school. And Fairfield has covered its old landfill with over a megawatt of solar, and that's used to power the transfer station buildings.
Plus the 3 carports.
Yes, we have carports. Carports are a little trickier, and most people probably aren't going to do carports, but you could if you wanted to put a carport in your home. If your roof is not great, you just have to factor in the cost of the structure and the trenching for the wiring, which will add a little bit to the cost. You know, the cheapest is always to do it on your rooftop, but there are different ways to skin the solar cat. Yes?
I remember you had a slide about at the end of each season when they pay out the amount for your battery use, for your battery's
Mm-hmm.
capacity during those peak periods. Can that theoretically go up over time, like the actual rate that you're getting paid? Because that would, you know, help pay down your system even more, I would imagine, right? If there's a super high peak period like we had last December.
Actually, that part for the battery performance is fixed, and it's fixed for 5 years, and then it drops down a little in the second 5 years. But for net metering, you remember you're getting the credit for your actual price, so that can go up if the rates go up. All right, well, thank you for coming. It's still daylight, believe it or not, in late summer. So we appreciate you guys coming out, and as we said, we can, you know, email this to you if you would like, or we'll provide it to the Energy Advisory Committee so they have it, and Patrice and I are always available if you have any follow-up questions. And we thank you for hosting us.
Very informative, a lot to consider.
I know,
Yeah.
almost too much information, right?
Yeah.